A couple weeks ago, I was super excited when I was asked to introduce an old friend of the club, a long-term member, very well liked, respected by everyone, a member of Sergeants who is especially charismatic, possesses a great sense of humor, and whenever he presented at Sergeants, everyone gladly donated when he hosted. Unfortunately, Lou Budge wasn't available. So I'm going to introduce Buzz Thielman instead. Sorry, I warned Buzz I was going to do that. Our guest speaker today was indeed a long member of our club, is very well respected and liked. Everything I said about Lou Budge is true about our speaker today. Buzz was a member of our club for years. He's a Paul Harris +4 donor. Buzz has been a resident of Medford for over 40 years. He served as a varsity soccer coach at South, which he says was a real kick. Yeah, I wrote that. I'll blame it on you, though, Buzz. All right. Buzz and his wife, Sherry, have just celebrated their 51st anniversary. Besides all the things that Buzz does, Buzz is also an author. I don't know how many people know that. His next novel, Devil's Breath, is coming out the end of this month. And moving on to more specifics, Buzz was the founder of RHT Energy. And I think, Buzz, you told me that RHT Energy put in like the solar panels at the airport. So every time I look at that now, I think of Buzz. And Buzz is also the reason he's here today. He's the founder of Medford's Oxygen Park. And that's why he's here today to talk about. Fellow Rotarians, please give me a warm welcome to Buzz Thielman.
Wow, it's great to be here. And I it's so interesting because in this club a long time, and I've always wanted to be reintroduced introduced to this particular club in the worst way, and I think it just happened. I look at I congratulate you guys for everything you do. I mean, with the student recognition is wonderful. I look at these kids that they're so brilliant, they're so energetic, and they're 4-point students, and that was that was a myth that never happened to me. I remember I made it all the way through college, and I didn't even know it was a 4-point system. I, so I look at these kids, it's wonderful. So anyway, I want to thank everybody here for being here and braving the weather. And I want to thank the AV folks. This is a step up from what we used to have. And I see Scott sitting there, and I remember the time in Klamath Falls we were giving a presentation. We had 300 people in the room, and remember that everything died, and there were 300 people. It was dead quiet in there, and all of a sudden somebody said, "Wonderful, there's a mistake." And all of a sudden somebody said, everything was dead and the room was dead. And somebody said, "Is there a 12-year-old in the audience?" Remember that? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we're missing. So anyway, what I want to talk about today is the oxygen. Sorry about that. I'm going to talk about this oxygen park and how this came into being. And I hope I can do this right. There we go. Okay, the oxygen park is in Medford, and it's basically two things. It's a physical wetlands, and has one objective, and that is sequester carbon and produce an oxygen for perpetuity. And it's also the other thing, most important, it's a brand. It is a brand, and that brand can be purchased to show your environmental stewardship. And I think that's important. A lot of corporation businesses get a black eye, and I've been told I was a born again capitalist, and I think corporations, businesses can be a solution. So it's a brand. Where it's located, okay, if you look at the one on the right, you can see if you go out Stewart Avenue, okay, turn left on Lozier Lane. There's 4 parcels there. It makes up 5.8 acres, and that is the oxygen park. Okay, and a lot of it has to do with climate change. And climate change is really interesting, and unfortunately, it's got politicized. I don't even like the words. I like, the weather's changing. It's better for me. I don't like the politics associated. But what I want to do is talk about all of it. And, a lot of it started with Al Gore. And Al Gore had a speech. He gave it all over. It was called The Inconvenient Truth. And in Inconvenient Truth, what he talked about, what was happening in the Arctic and icebergs. He was also talking a lot about carbon and how significant carbon is in changing an environment we live in. So anyway, I wanted to start investigating it. And this isn't just Al Gore. It just isn't the United States. So anyway, when I looked at the Davos, Switzerland Economic Summit, it was COP21. Look at what the number one thing facing the world. It was climate change. And okay, I don't know why it did that. But anyway, that was climate change. And see the one right below it? It's weapons of mass destruction. That is how focused the world is on what's happening with the climate. So let's kind of get into the science of it. And what happens with the science of it is this, and I'm focusing on carbon right now. If you look at the sun, it's radiating the earth and it's coming down with protons and photons and a lot of infrared. And the infrared magnetic waves, of course, the ones that warm you, where ultraviolet gives you a tan. But anyway, as the infrared comes down, it warms the surface of the earth. But if you look at the circumference around the earth, and about 12 miles out, by the way, that term is called the troposphere, which is the lower level of the atmosphere. What has happened? We're developing a blanket around it, and that's called the greenhouse gases. Now, the majority in that is actually moisture. It is moisture. 70% of the greenhouse gases is just moisture. And the technical term for that is clouds, by the way. But anyway, when you look at that, 70% is that. But you know what happens to the moisture? It's dissolved in 9 days. But the carbon is right behind it. The carbon stays there for about 99 to 100 years. And why that is significant, you see, as the sun penetrates, it warms the earth radiates energy back. But then when it sees that blanket around it, it reflects back to the earth and causes a raise in Earth's temperature. That is the science behind the greenhouse gases and why the earth is increasing in temperature. So where is it from? Well, obviously transportation, we all know that, burning carbon fuel. The other one is power. Even though in the Northwest here, we're pretty fortunate. In fact, we have a majority of our power coming from hydroelectric. If you look at the United States, 60% is from burning fossil fuels, and that is coal, oil, and natural gas. So that is where a lot of the carbon comes from. But it's not in the, if you look at can't read the numbers from here, but the blue there represents all the carbon from fossil fuels. The red portion actually shows the carbon that's created from deforestation. In other words, when a plant is young and it's growing, that is a sequestering, wonderful piece of the environment. And then as it dies, it decomposes, it actually gives off carbon. But you can see the main culprit is actually fossil fuel. But it's not alone, it's us. It's us. Every person produces about 2.3 of carbon every day just through respiration. And you multiply that by the 8 billion people in the world, and that comes up to 8,559,000,000 tons of carbon we do just by breathing. What I'm trying to say, it's a natural part of life. It is a natural part of life. But, if you look at the whole thing, it's just not simple. It's complex. And this is another one, and this is a very big one. The rainforest, if you look at the rainforest in South America, it sequesters 50% of the carbon in the world. And the reason why it does it, it's not only lush vegetation, it is the root structure. See, when a plant through photosynthesis produces oxygen, takes in the carbon, it stores it in the root structure. And that's one of the reasons why this place I'm looking at, the oxygen park, is a wetlands, because the wetlands is the ultimate sequestering carbon. And so anyway, when the deforestation that's occurring down there, not only for the timber and the mahogany, but also for the advancement of, there's a lot of beef that's raised down there right now. But another thing happens. Not only are we losing the sequestering ability, something else happens too. Now, I've been here a long time. Does everyone remember Leon Hunsaker? Does anybody other than me? Okay, some hands. Well, he was a famed meteorologist. He was on TV, he was on radio. And I had turned to one of his presentations and he said, we're overlooking something. We've changed the jet stream. And he said, is there a pilot in the room? Well, anyway, if you're flying a plane and you go over a desert, it's going to raise, isn't it? Because the warm air is coming off that bright surface and it's going to make your plane take off. But the opposite of that, let's say you're going to something over cold, like a forest or anything, your plane will go down because the air is sinking toward the cold. And what Leon was saying, we're forgetting about that. What's happening with, look at South America there. As it gets warmer, it's pushing the jet stream up and it's changing our weather pattern. My sister lives in Ada, Oklahoma, and that was really considered Tornado Alley. And where have the tornadoes, have you noticed they've moved east? So that's another factor in it. How about this one? It is a complex issue. The sun's energy isn't consistent. It has an 11-year cycle and it varies. And if you can look at, you can't read the numbers there, but it changes from year to year. So in other words, some years we have more solar radiation than others. This is one I got from NASA. Now, this is kind of interesting. You know, the Earth rotates on an axis. I always thought it was stationary. It's not. And you look at it, it wobbles. And some days and some years we're further from the sun than other. Now, I honestly think, and I love NASA stuff, but I think graphically that was over displayed because right now it looks like Medford's in Japan. But yeah, but anyway, it does wobble. It is not stationary. So anyway, it's a complex issue, and there's a lot of things that we look to resolve it. But Europe is way, way ahead of us, way, way ahead of us. And by the way, you'll hear this term. You know, we talk about conservation, but you know what they talk about is a rewilding, rewilding. And if you look at this, this is all the places in Europe that it's going on right now. And in 2024, the EU decided to take 20% of the lands that were degraded and bring it back to the way it was. By the way, this is not making a golf course out of it. That's bring it back to the way it was, because their whole field is just that we can do the best we can, you know, with a shovel and planting trees, but it doesn't come close to what Mother Nature could do. So anyway, what are some of the solutions to sequester carbon and turn this thing around? One is renewable energy, no question about that. Renewable energy is a definite part of it. Another one on the right is, you know, what are you doing about energy efficiency? And I'm going to take a little sidetrack here. And, you know, because there's two slides up here on the top, solar on the left and energy efficiency, making your house more energy efficiency. And what I want to say, here's a rule of thumb. To save a kilowatt hour, which is 3,413 BTUs, is that it costs about $1 to do it in your house. And that's through insulation, better windows, better heat pump, mini splits like that. You do it with solar, it's $3 to $5. So what the simple message is, do the conservation first. The worst thing to do is put solar on to serve energy inefficiency. That really is a waste. And honestly, I can see right now, I have actually gone down the street on Medford and on McAndrews, and there is a house with a solar on the north side. Really? Really, I feel sorry that somebody was sold a bill of goods, really a bill of goods. Anyway, what are the other ones? The other one is carbon sequestering. Now, if you look at the lower left-hand corner, do you see it looks like a big air conditioner? And the idea is you pull the air through that, and you pull the carbon out of it, then you put it in a carbon sink, basically a carbon well beneath the surface. The thing that I don't like about this, if you can see, it's being powered by a coal-burning steam plant. Okay, I have a real problem with it. But anyway, what I want to focus on, I think the answer is simple. It's land use and restoration. Let Mother Nature do it. So, and this is one, Lakota shaman, Black Elk once said, you don't have to heal her. She can heal herself. All you have to do is stop making her sick. So where do we find the oxygen part? Excuse me. Where do we find the oxygen part? Definitely, we're more to the rewilding. We want to bring it back to the way it was and let Mother Nature do it. It is a wetlands, and wetlands are fantastic for not only the root structure, but if you talk about environmental environmental people that are experts on it, they also call a wetlands is Mother Nature's fire break. It's a wonderful piece. So anyway, that's what we want to do is focus on that. But the other part of this whole thing makes it different from all of it. It's a brand. Oxygen Park is a brand. And why I put this on there, because when I started doing my marketing plan, I looked at the consumer public has changed. You know, we used to just go to the store and you'd buy eggs or you'd buy whatever you did. But now we look at all the things associated with it. Is it probiotic? Is it organic? Is it grass-fed beef? Is it made in the USA? What's the energy efficient? Is it hybrid? Is it gluten-free? Is it range-free? You know, eggs. We have a very, very specific demand from our consumers. And I think what can happen is businesses, clubs, cities can benefit by that being associated with the environmental stewardship because people want it. So the oxygen part, the idea, and this is our marketing plan, create a nonprofit entity with a recognizable brand where monies collected are used for acquiring more carbon sequestering lands, and donors profit from the popular brand affiliation and tax credit. Oxygen Park is the environmental equivalent of the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. So how does that appear? It's like this. If you want to take advantage of that brand, people that participate with our businesses with Oxygen Park can use the brand. And the brand Oxygen Park is trademarked, by the way. We are a 501c3 charitable organization and is a registered trademark brand. And so anyone who contributes to it and we buy more land can use the brand, whether it's on a city, club, or a business. Why did I do this? You know, some of my history, George commented on it. You know, I was 28 years with Pacific Power. Then I founded RHT and had the good fortune of working with Scott and Angelique. And, you know, the diversified, I loved what I did. I never went to work. I loved every day of it. It was like an Easter egg hunt, finding improvements, you know, cities and towns and businesses from, like George said, the airport, the solar, work with Burn Case, putting the solar up there. By the way, that's enough solar powers all the lights in the parking lot. And also they have charging for your electric vehicle and it runs off the sun. But it was Roseburg Forest product, it was Lithia, it was the school, you know, like Medford 509C, that was the first one I ever did. You know, Spiegelberg Stadium was on the wrong rate schedule for 30 years. And now if you look at the south end, you'll see a new meter there, and that's because we wanted to make it more efficient and be built correctly. But what came out of all this stuff for me was this, a correlation between energy, the standard of living, and the environment. And, you know, in the United States, we use more energy per capita than any other place in the world. You know, we're the ones, but it gives us this standard of living. Instead of walking to work, you drive, or you have a house with air conditioning in it. Maybe you have a hot tub, but it gives us that wonderful standard of living. But there is an environmental consequence on all of it, whether it's the car that uses fossil fuels to move, or whether it's, you know, your house and you put in a hot tub and it's offset by generation. So there is a correlation, and the common denominator, really, let's boil it all down, is air and water. Air and water. So when we do these things, what's the consequence on the environment? What's the consequence of air and water? Because, you know, if you look at the priorities, we can live 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 minutes without air. And, you know, there's times in Medford in the fire season, I honestly swear we were pushing it. So what's the Oxygen Park? Or it's the Oxygen Park is actually the first in the nation. It's 5.8 acres out there, those parcels together. There actually is, you Google it, there actually is one other one in the world, and it's Dubai. But what Dubai looks like a skate park. I mean, it is nothing like this. It's not rewilding. You can imagine what it would look like in Dubai. But we are the only one in the nation. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And so financial contributions go to buy more carbon sequestering land. Contributions are tax deductible. And the Medford Oxygen Park is a designated state of Oregon wetlands. You know, studying this, I learned a lot. You know, if you know, Elk Creek runs right through the center of this thing. And I started taking water samples from the soil and see how saturated it was. Elk Creek, honestly, it gets down to, it's not, you know, 3 or 4 feet. I found 100 yards away, water was saturated, just saturated. I learned a lot in this study. The other thing is, okay, creek runs right through it. And the Oxygen Park is a natural carbon sink and produces 129 metric tons of oxygen every year and sequesters over 48 tons of carbon for perpetuity. It's perfect. So anyway, the other part of it, what is the money on this? For example, someone's contribute, what is the money? Well, one is carbon credits. Now, if I'm going to dial it forward, let's say you're in California and you want to put in a cement plant. Cement puts out a lot of pollution. A lot of when they heat it up, they actually burn tires in there. How do they do that? So they can't get into that threshold. So how do you get into that threshold? What you do, you want to put your plant there, but you go some other place and you do an environmental project, whether it is efficiency or solar, and it offsets it. So there's a value in that. And this is all throughout the United States. And you can do it with renewable projects. You can do it with energy efficiency. You can do it with carbon sequestering, but you also can do it with land restoration. So the restoration credits are basically using Mother Nature's ability to sequester carbon. Vegetation absorbs the carbon from the atmosphere and through photosynthesis produces oxygen and transfer the carbon into the soil and through the root structure where it enriches the structure, the soils and the quality of the soil. And I don't know if you can see, this is really interesting. What's it worth? What's it worth? This is a worldwide market, by the way. And I'm going to get over a little bit. It might get out of your camera here, but you see the very top one right now. That one is in euros, and this is for a metric ton. In Europe, you get 61.90 in euros. Ukraine in the UK, it's 39.92. That's in pounds. But California is the only one in the United States that does it, and it's $49 a metric ton. So simple math. The little oxygen park we have here, if I did the math, 48 times 49, it's worth an income of $2,500 a year. $2,500 a year. So there is a money significance to this. So it's a simple solution. In fact, and that's a picture I took. This oxygen park has 2 family of deer there. I took that today. So why in Medford? And I thought if anybody be sympathetic, it'd be us. You know, I've lived here 40 years, and honestly, I can say the first 35, I never remember forest fires like it is now. I can never remember days that I didn't want to go outside. So I thought if people exposed the perils of wildfire and months of smoke-filled air, they'd be sympathetic. And the second one is put the oxygen park where it's needed the most, and that's the urban environment. Urban environment is really where most carbon is created. You know, it's most of it in that. And the other thing was, all I need to tell this is a total disclosure. Before I bought this, I was looking at 50 acres outside of Ashland, and it had been logged, and I wanted to go there and replant it, young plants. And then, you know, Sherry was shaking her head, but anyway, I didn't do it because it all burned down. And I thought, well, I mean, almost made a huge mistake on that. And, you know, and George mentioned I've been married 50 years, and sometimes Sherry looks at me and has to shake her head, just go, what are you thinking? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in fact, I got to share it to the other day. I had a colonoscopy, and Sherry was in the waiting room, and the doctor came out. She said, what'd you see up there? He said, nothing. She said, good. I thought his head was up there. So anyway, gotta love her. So anyway, the other thing is any 80-20 rule. And what I mean by that is I have a friend, Tom Dew, and Tom Dew was a forest ranger. A lot of people know him. And he said, you know, in the forest, you know, what we talk about is the 80-20 rule. And I said, what is that, Tom? He said, if you look at national parks, there's an 80-20 rule. And I said, what's that? And he said, 80% of the people never get 20 feet from the parking lot. Yeah. So that's interesting. So the idea on this was put it right on a thoroughfare on Lozier Lane. You drive through it, put it in the vision of everybody, so we know the significance of it. Other thing, it's a state wetlands, and they're a deep root structure and #1 choice for carbon sequester. Next one, why not be first in the nation? Medford has a lot to be proud of. We have wonderful neighbors. If you've gone by it, I encourage you to go by it. We got 2 billboards out there, and you'll know exactly where it is. A lot of people walk their dogs there, and they take a walk. And these are some of the comments. Thank you so much for establishing the oxygen park. It's so cool and refreshing. Stark beauty in the winter. There are so few places left with a shady greenway, and that's Carol Clark. She's indeed. The other one was from Jill Hunter. I was really taken with the beauty of the special untouched swath of land and spent time checking it out. amazing variety of habitat and wildlife. I think maintaining a large percentage of open space is one of the most critical things a community can do. That's Jill Hunter. Another neighbor was Deanna. She said, you know, her top priority is keeping the wetlands safe. Had a really good response from this, really good response. So where are we right now? It's 5.8 acres. It's secured for perpetuity in Medford for producing oxygen, sequestering carbon. It's a 501c3 public charity and contributions are tax deductible. It's Medford Oxygen Park. Any new funds can allow us to go and buy future land that will sequester carbon. Carbon credits will be available as more sequestering land is secured. And just being honest here, right now, I'm too small to play in that. I'd like to go down if you had 1,000 acres. Now you've got some bargaining chips on going to the trading of carbon. Let's see, the other, we're open for partners. This is the status right now. Looking for partners. We have one right now, but we're looking for others, businesses, clubs, partnerships that want to share in it and like the positive recognition of being associated with an oxygen park and combating the impacts of climate change. You can visit us online. We have our website, and I'm always available. So that's it. There's the deer again, and that's it. In fact, I put those deer signs up, and if you go, that was me. It was not the state or city that did it. I almost hit one of the deer. I was going through there, and a 5-point buck ran right in front. And I thought, nobody knows this is here, but they are now. And that is it. And I thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry, my phone went off.
That's fine. Can we find a former member?
Sure.
I don't know, but election.
Hey, bud.
To expand.
All the parcels were 5.8. That's all that's available. It's actually surrounded by a residential community with fences and everything else. Yeah, 5.8 acres. That's the whole thing.
Thanks.
Yes. Hey, Bailey.
Thank you. You always do a nice job. I like how you started out where you said climate change has been too politicized and that we should just say the weather's changing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nice thing. And then you were referring to the wetlands quite a bit.
Yes.
And back in Minnesota, when we built our house at the very beginning, there was not a lot around us, but it's a land of 10,000 lakes and we had a lot of swamp.
Yes.
More houses got developed. Those swamps turned into wetlands and all of our taxes went up.
Oh,
So
really?
that's how that one works. They got a new name. My question for you is, once you have that property, who maintains it? I mean, it must have to be kind of cleared and groomed from time to time. Is that up to you?
That's totally true. And I have a gentleman named Ben Van Holzen that helps me with it. And the main thing we have to do, and this is total honesty, you know, our biggest threat was homeless. I'll be honest, it was unbelievable. We pulled chaise lounges, tires, bicycles, mattresses, everything out of there. And the one thing that got me, where do you think one homeless camp put a fire pit 20 feet from somebody's fence? Really? You know, we pulled out a lot and we've done that repeatedly. And the other thing we do, Bailey, is we mow the perimeter because, you know, the purpose is sequestering carbon. This is not a pedestrian park. There are no benches or anything like, I don't want that. That invites issues. And so what we do though, is about 4 times a year, we mow the perimeter. And that's dealing with a fire code here. Anything over 10 inches is supposed to be mowed. So we mow the perimeter and that takes about 4 times a year. And that constitutes what we do, Bailey. Good question. Thank you. Yes, right here. Yes.
Are there paths or like how
They walk them on the sidewalk. And since I'm disclosing it, can I tell you my number one pet peeve?
Sure.
Your dog takes a poop, you put it in a purple bag, and then you throw it into the place.
Trash cans?
They do.
Thing.
Pardon?
Trash cans are a thing.
I said,
Trash cans
yeah,
are a thing.
there is no trash can. And the reason why a friend of mine on this whole thing has helped me as does everybody, you know, our Rosenthal, Rich Rosenthal, you know, he's at head of Medford Parks. I was going to put a trash can. He said, don't. What you're going to find is going to fill up with household waste and it will be abused. And all of a sudden you're a garbage dump and you're inviting it. So that is the reason I didn't. I put little signs up and I said, if your dog poops, pick it up, you know, but we still have some people that prefer to throw it.
So there aren't like paths through it. It's just the perimeter.
It's just the perimeter,
Oh.
just the perimeter. Good question. Any others? Yes.
So I'm curious, with wetlands, does it attract different species of birds? And
Oh.
have you noticed that?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, it is unbelievable what's there. We have deer, we have turtles, we have raccoons, we've had crows, and we have eagles all through the whole thing. It attracts it. It is like a magnet.
So prior to living here, I lived in Tucson, Arizona, and not far from there, I was surprised to find that Tucson was the international birder, they held an international birders convention there.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if that might be an attraction for people for bird watching. But then with what you're saying, you don't want people around there, maybe that's not a good idea.
First of all, thank you for your leadership, by the way. I
Thank you.
really applaud you for that. And I think it's a two-edged sword. It is a two-edged sword. Right now, we have a lot of people just walking through because they love it. In fact, if you saw the article in the paper, it was written by Damian Mann. You know, he's a reporter for that. And he didn't know about it. And I said, it was 90 degrees that day. We stepped about 6 foot into it. And all of a sudden, you felt like you were on the coast. You could, you ever go into a place and all of a sudden you feel the oxygen in the air, and it's right there and right there. So we have enough, I think, attention right now, and I'm reluctant to divert too much from that because I could create something I couldn't control.
All right. Thank you so much, Buzz, for a very interesting topic. I'm sure you know, because we've been doing this for a while, but we are supporters of the Smart Reading Program. So as a thank you for being our speaker today, we have a thank you gift. It is my very favorite book in the whole wide world, which is the title of the book. So if you would please sign the inside cover, then we can get this into the hands of a smart reader. So thank you all for being here today. We're going to wrap it up.